Have you ever thought, sugar needs to be sweeter?
No.
Okay, well, India did.
Oh.
Yeah, so
How do you even make sugar sweeter?
basically you crossbreed. Oh my god, poot! Okay. But,
The people on the audio only, like Spotify, are gonna be so confused.
Poot is Eva's cat.
He said hi, go check the YouTube.
But basically you make sugar sweeter by crossbreeding a bunch of different types of sugar. So Janaki Ammal was an Indian botanist who sweetened sugar, saved a forest, and traveled the world in search of knowledge. This is her story. Okay. For those of you listening on Spotify and could not tell I'm Indian, hi, I'm Indian. But that being said, I will admit that sometimes pronunciation is difficult, so bear with me and Eva through a lot of this pronunciation because we're talking about an Indian woman today. Oh god, I looked at these words and okay.
I'm looking at these words and I'm scared.
Okay, so Edavaleth Kakat Janaki Ammal, they call her Janaki, was basically the 10th of 19 children. 19.
How do you even have 19?
2 wives.
Okay.
But still.
That's still crazy.
That's like 10 kids each. But she was born on November 4th, 1897, to her father, E.K. Krishnan. I'm assuming her father's name was the same as the first 2 parts of her name, because a lot of daughters in India will like commonly take their father's name as a part of their first name or their last name. So yeah. But she was born in Telacheri, which is now, I think, Talassery. It's in South India. It's in the state of Kerala. And her father was a high court sub-judge. The court system in India is a lot different. I don't really understand it, if I'm being honest. My mom's tried to explain it to me, but it doesn't really make sense to me. But she had a privileged life. Oh my god, the story. Her house had a name, first of all. It was called Edam. So like the Biltmore House, if you're listening in the US and you know what the Biltmore House is, it's like the biggest privately owned house in the US. It's like owned by the Vanderbilts. It has like a cool name. Well, her house was named Edam. I don't know how many people like named their houses. It was a 2-story house, had a grand piano, a giant library, a huge garden, and that's like, India is like a big like continuum of like who lives how what. Like you have like some people who like live in the slums, and then you have like the Ambanis who like live in giant freaking mansions. But this 2-story house with all of this, that's definitely like you live in Kush. Cushy, not Kush, cushy. Anyways, but it was believed that her love for plants and nature started at her home with her father in a beautiful garden, and her father actually did some research on herbs and stuff like that.
That's pretty neat. Janaki and her family belong to the Thea community, which from what we've gathered is a caste. If you're unaware, India historically has a caste system, which is basically a social hierarchy based on jobs, perhaps who you were in a past life. There's a lot of definitions regarding origins. However, I'm pretty sure it wasn't originally so discriminatory as it has come to be associated with today. After British imperialism of India, the divide between the classes got really bad and resulted in colorism and discrimination against people who were considered lower than you. Total transparency, we got a little bit confused on where the Thea lie in terms of caste. Probably mid to high level, but this is an assumption, so it's not necessarily relevant to Janaki and her achievements, but historically, lower castes had more difficulty with achieving education, especially for a woman. However, a lot of what we've seen said that Janaki faced a lot of caste discrimination, not to mention gender discrimination, which makes her achievements all the more commendable.
So in 1913, India's literacy rate was less than 1%. And only about 1,000 women were enrolled in education higher than 10th grade. Not just India, but everywhere, women were encouraged to get married and have a family. Yeah, so Janaki was having none of that. She decided to go and get her bachelor's degree instead at Queen Mary's College in Madras, which is now Chennai. so many Indian cities have undergone name changes. So, like, if you know, like, Calcutta is now Kolkata, Mumbai, Bombay. It's all of the names were changed. Anyways, but couldn't find out what her undergrad degree was in. Probably biology or something plant related. But after she graduated, she taught for 3 years at the Women's Christian College. Side note, like, first of all, like, 28 million people in India practice. 28 million is not a random number. That's actually like a real number. But they practice Christianity, and I feel like this is where like you get people named like Jonathan Kumar. Like I feel like I don't. Have you ever? Mm-mm. Okay, so there's in South India, there's specific regions where you have like really like Christian first names,
okay,
and then it's like Patel, or like, well, Patel's like Gujarati, so probably not, but like Raj or something like that, like super like long convoluted South Indian last name. I didn't
realize that was like a religion.
Yeah, so I think it was because of like colonialism. I think it was the Portuguese, and they came down and they were like, be Christian, and then they were like, okay, they weren't really like okay, but a lot of them in South India converted to Christianity, and then you get like them naming their children that. And then I also saw something that was really interesting where like there's Indianified Christian names. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of them, but it would be like Christopher, but like translated into Indian words. Like it wouldn't just be like Christopher with like an Indian accent, but there is also like Christophers like with Indian accents. But anyways, it's a common misconception that like India is only involves people that practice Hinduism, which also I take up issue with the fact that like, you know how like India's like go, or not India, America's like yes, go USA, like whatever. So like the way to say that like in like India would be Jai Hind, implying like Hindustani, like Hindus, which I take up issue with that because not everybody in India is Hindu. But anyways, so yeah, a lot of people practice Christianity, and apparently the best schools in India are typically Christian schools. According to my mom, this is not from anywhere else. My mom was just telling me that like a lot of people would go to schools run by nuns because the education was better.
Is that for like Western influence?
Yeah, it was because like the British like put more like time and like not information, but like the schools that were set up by the British were better than the ones set up in India by the government, and so people would preferentially send their kids to Christian schools if they could afford it.
I see. So in 1924, while Janaki was teaching, she received the University of Michigan's Barbour Scholarship, which was established by Levi Barbour, anyway, to support Asian women coming to study in the U.S. It's one of the university's oldest and most prestigious scholarships. So yippee for University of Michigan supporting people of color, and specifically women in STEM, from literally 1917. So Janaki's grandniece, Gita Doctor, writes a lot about Janaki and her life, and much of the information we know is from her. She talked about an encounter that Janaki had at Ellis Island while trying to come to the US for her prestigious scholarship, and I suppose that the immigration officers mistook her for an Indian princess. That's kind of a slur.
Yeah, they were like, they saw her long hair and her like beautiful Indian silks, and they just thought that she was a princess.
Oh my goodness. Janaki later said that she didn't deny that she was a princess. Okay, but like, who would deny? Like, of course, like, yes. And instead of getting properly detained until her status was cleared, she was just let through.
Yeah, they were like, oh, you're a princess. You're fine. Go on ahead. But while Janaki was at UMich, she studied plant cytology, specifically the genetic composition and patterns of gene expression in plants. She was well known for creating plant hybrids, so like taking plants of like 2 different species, not even just species, she did some different genuses, genera, technically. But she was just taking all sorts of plants and just be like, mate. And she'd make new plants, basically. She first received her master's in 1925, then she went back to India to teach for a little bit, and then came back to University of Michigan to get her doctorate in 1931.
This is a dumb question, but how was she traveling?
You know, I was also wondering that, because I think I looked up when the like intercontinental flight was first invented, and it was like later.
Yeah, so is she going by boat? Because that's sketch.
What I was assuming. But like, if she's going to Ellis Island, that's in New York. So she would go. is it Angel Island? No, it's not Angel Island. I forget what the...
Of course, from Michigan to New York and then boat to...
I don't know, but I was also wondering how she was getting so many... Because this isn't the only time she travels. She travels her whole life, like crazy. And so I'm real confused, and it doesn't say anywhere, if she was flying or if she was boating or train. I have a feeling it was probably like train from India to like somewhere in Europe, and then maybe like boat from there.
That would make more sense.
Because like if she's coming
Hopefully. I feel like you want to reduce your time at sea.
Yeah. And then when first transcontinental flight. Okay. Oh, well technically, I guess this is across the US, wasn't in 1911. I don't know. I
feel like we're showing our age here.
When did the first planes fly?
In the first plane.
It was the Wright brothers. It was like, okay, yeah,
1903.
But like, that's not when they could fly across like
When
the ocean.
Can fly across.
And they definitely couldn't fly to India because like fuel ?
Oh no. Late 1940s.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So.
Because like I feel like it coincided with like World War II.
Yeah,
because that's when planes got better.
1927, and I don't think it was like publicized or like public.
Yeah. So
like
this was like right around that time. So I doubt she was flying. So theory is she took a train to Europe and then she took a boat, but that's pure speculation because we have no idea. Regardless, she ended up getting her doctorate in 1931, becoming India's first female botanist. And I also believe she was the first Indian woman in the US to receive her doctorate. She published her PhD thesis titled Chromosome Studies in Nicandra Physeloides. Nicandra Physeloides? It's called the shoe fly plant. In 1932.
I like shoe fly. After graduating from the University of Michigan, Janaki returned to India and did some more teaching at the Maharaja's College of Science as the professor of botany. So she really loved teaching, but she ended up joining the sugarcane breeding station as a geneticist. The breeding station was trying to enhance the sweetness of India's native sugarcane to compete with imported sugarcane. So they hoped that Janaki's experience could help with that. She did exactly what they hoped for, and is sometimes referred to as the woman who sweetened India's sugar. She was also the first person across sugarcane and maize, which improved the understanding of sugarcane evolution. In 1940, she ended up moving to England to work at the John Innes Horticulture Institute to study the origins and evolution of cultivated plants with Cyril Dean Darlington, who was a British geneticist. She even co-authored the Chromosome Atlas of Cultivated Plants with him, which was basically a compilation of the chromosome number of about 100,000 plants.
When Janaki was in England, World War II was happening, and she often wrote to her friends about how she'd hide under her bed at night because of the bombings, and in the morning she would just clean up the glass and get back to work, which is kind of crazy. But anyways, after all of that, she ends up joining the Royal Horticulture Society in 1946 as the first salary woman to do so. She studied the use of colchicine. It's a drug.
Colchicine?
Maybe colchicine?
But potentially.
It's a drug that duplicates a plant's chromosomes. So like all of like the DNA in your body is arranged into little X's, but like they're not actually little X's in your body. But
can't you get like new species by doing that? Because then the new plant has like more chromosomes, so it can't like breed with the original plant. But then if you have a new plant that also has that same amount of chromosomes, they get to breed, and now like a new species technically is produced.
Plant genetics work different than like normal animal genetics because plants are a lot more flexible.
Yeah.
So
like you have like more chromosomes.
But like sometimes even if you have different chromosomes, they can like.
Yeah, that's true. I think like numbers. You need the same numbers.
Sometimes I don't think you always need the same number. I think it's just like you have to have like enough of an like they have to work like just enough.
Okay.
So like I think that's why she could cross different genuses and species. Because like they don't necessarily have
kind
to.
Of confusing.
Yeah. It was complicated. It wasn't very well explained, but. Yeah, she ended up duplicating a bunch of plants' different chromosomes. And plants are weird. They don't just like die and explode if you duplicate their chromosomes. They grow faster and bigger and better.
Is that why we got apples the size of footballs?
Yes, I think it is. I think that is actually like very close to like how that happened, and that was the point of like her botany, was to like improve agriculture in Europe and England and India. So as part of her experiments, she actually ended up creating Magnolia cobus Janaki Ammal, a magnolia shrub that was named after her, with flowers that have bright white petals and purple centers, like stamens, like the little inside of the flower is purple. Around 1950, at the request of India's first Prime Minister, Jawahar, oh my god, I literally looked about it. This is really bad that I cannot say India's first Prime Minister. We always just say Nehru. Jawaharlal. Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. Nehru. We always say Nehru. I never tried to say his first name. Anyways, she returned to India to improve its agriculture and was appointed the first director of the Central Botanical Laboratory of the Government of India at Lucknow. In this role, she tried to create a platform that used genetics to study India's floral diversity. Unfortunately, many of her male colleagues refused to take orders from her, making her life very difficult.
Oh man, I would be so angry.
She was literally appointed by the Prime Minister of India, and they're like, no, you're a woman. Anyways.
Despite her success being recognized by the government, she blatantly expressed her dissatisfaction with some of the government's initiatives in increasing food production. She wrote about how deforestation was getting out of hand and destroying India's native plants. One time, she traveled 37 miles to find one specific magnolia tree, only to find that it had been burned down.
Indian women really love magnolias. At least in my personal experience, my family loves magnolias. But 37 miles?
That's insane. I mean, it doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
This might be slightly unrelated and on a strand, but don't they make something like a perfume or an oil out of like a bark or something in the magnolia tree?
I have no idea.
Indian culture. I don't know. There was in my I took some bioengineering class, and there was some paper about them trying to like recreate that like specific chemical compound so that they could stop the deforestation of those trees.
Oh, I know that they like magnolia and they like jasmine flowers. I don't know, like typically I've seen people just like make an oil out of it and just like do that, but I am not entirely sure.
That's fair. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. But after this, she decided to dedicate her knowledge and resources to preserving native plants. After India gained independence, she believed that the Botanical Survey of India should be carried out by Indian scientists rather than the British as before, and she wanted to be the director, basically the chief botanist of India.
Unfortunately, despite India's independence, a European scientist was appointed director, and Janaki felt that she was unjustly denied from this position.
That's whack.
I would be too. She worked so hard and like discovered so much.
I feel like that's like a personal thing against her at that point.
I don't even know, because the prime minister was like, yes, queen, come back, give us your plants. And then
he was like, give us your plants when we're benefiting for agriculture.
Yeah,
maybe he like didn't support.
I don't know. I think there was a whole thing with like the people who do it, like pulling out the MCAT terms, meritocracy, like whoever the people were best fit to do it. But I think that like the whole point with India, like they became independent and they wanted to be able to do things themselves. And so I don't know, for Janaki it was really important that India flora was collected by Indian scientists and studied in Indian labs, especially after how the British had just ruled over them and kind of treated them awfully for however many years.
Right, and then they just got independence and then they're already outsourcing. Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And so I think it was like a bit of like a national pride thing, which is understandable. Like if you're a well-developed country and you have all the resources and everything like that, like sure, that's fine. Like choose the best person for the job. But when it's something like you're trying to like get on your feet, like, and recover after the British rule, like you're gonna want to bolster like nationalism and bringing the community together over plants, I guess. But that's the idea. And so she felt like she was fully capable of running these programs. She felt there was no need for the British to be involved in it. And she actually called it, like, quote unquote, like a major defeat for the botanical sciences in India. And that's a That's a valid response. She was really sad about it.
I feel bad.
Yeah. Well, also, what's crazy is that the largest collection of Indian plants is not in India. It's in England at the Royal Botanic Gardens. England has everything except for spices. They went across the whole world, collected everything, and they kept all the artifacts, all the plants, and they didn't keep the spices, which is what they originally went to those countries for. Anyways, sorry British people if you're watching. I have minor beef with your food.
She was still determined to preserve India's plants as much as she could. So in 1955, she was the only woman to attend a symposium in Chicago, very ironically called Man's Role in Changing the Face of the Earth. She even gave a talk in a room full of white men about subsistence economy, the significance of tribal cultures and their cultivation of native plants, and the importance of Indian matrilineal traditions that valued women as managers of property, including a family's plants, all of which were threatened by the mass production of cereals like rice, wheat, and oat stuff, not like Lucky Charms.
I feel like in your family, if you were like the manager of like the plants and like the business, and I feel like that'd be very safe. I feel like you would take care of your family's plants very well.
Like me specifically?
Yeah, you.
Like,
I don't know. I feel like you love your plants.
I do.
You treat them like your babies. You'd be a good plant mom. You are a good plant mom.
Thank you.
Anyways, one of Janaki's greatest achievements was saving Silent Valley. Silent Valley is a forest in Kerala, which was also Janaki's home state. And I think this was like in the 1970s. But the government wanted to flood the whole forest to set up a hydroelectric project. So like they wanted to turn the forest into a lake.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. So Janaki was obviously very much against that and became a part of the Save Silent Valley movement. She joined protesters and activists, which I find is really awesome because like she was a whole scientist. Like she totally could have gone like policy route and like talk to people and stuff like that, but she decided to like stay with like grassroots activism and like be out there with the community and stuff like that. And also she was like elderly at this point. Like I didn't do the exact math, but like I think she was in her like at least like past her 50s, maybe 60s. And so she wasn't like super
That's
like
old for the time period.
Yeah. And she wasn't like young and spry and all that. And also we live in Charleston, if I doubt anybody knew that. But
Dude,
well,
don't dox us.
Huh?
Don't dox us.
I do. Our whole two viewers that are our boyfriends know that we live in Charleston. But I went to Second Sunday like last weekend or maybe the weekend before, and like, do you know what Second Sunday is?
No.
It's like the market that's downtown where like they have like all the like stands and all that.
I don't know why I said I didn't.
It's not like the normal market. It's the one that they have once a month. Okay, yeah. And so we saw like a bunch of these like elderly people just walking around with signs being like Save the US and like they were protesting. They were just walking around handing out flowers and stuff like that, and they were all just like protesting. It was really cute, and it's really nice when you see like elderly people
It's protesting. Sad sometimes.
It is also sad because it's like they live their whole life and then like this is how it's ending.
Especially when it's like maybe considering, because you know in Charleston we have a lot of like older African American communities, and like the government is always like threatening to take away the land to build like highways and stuff.
Yeah.
So that makes me upset.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that they're still doing everything they can.
Right. So
their age.
Janaki was old. Moral of the story is watching old people do activism is really sweet, but also kind of sad. But Janaki did something kind of insane to save Silent Valley. She did a chromosomal survey of all of the plants in Silent Valley. That's a forest. That's a huge forest. And she surveyed all of them just to save the botanical knowledge. And somehow, through what means, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know where you go from chromosomal survey to saving.
I was just about to ask, like, what her...
Wasn't super clear on how that worked, but somehow it worked. And she ended up saving the forest, and the government did not flood the forest. I don't know if it was okay, you're making enough noise, we'll just leave you alone now.
Okay.
Or if it's like okay, yes, we are actively trying to do this. But, yeah. So,
Was she gonna like regrow the forest or have like samples of all the plants that were gonna
I
get?
think it was just like saving the knowledge and maybe like like clippings and like stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't think it was like regrowing it or anything.
I see.
But unfortunately, Janaki died in 1984 at the age of 87, which is
That's impressive.
quite old. And this was just 9 months before Silent Valley was actually declared a national park, which was on November 15th, 1984.
Wow. Janaki is famously known for saying, "My work is what will survive." She was right. Despite many people in India and abroad not knowing her specifically, she transformed India's sugar industry, saved who knows how many plants, and prevented a national park from being destroyed, before it was even a national park. At 80, she was awarded the Padma Shri, which is one of India's highest civilian honors. Her letters and correspondence to Cyril Darlington are kept at the Bodleian Library in
Bodleian?
Oxford.
I don't know.
The Bodleian? Big old library in Oxford. Oxford. For visitors to gain insight into what her life was like. In the face of discrimination and barriers, Janaki never lost passion for her work. She traveled the world pursuing her work and was a trailblazer for both women and botanists of India. She is remembered by the beautiful flowers she created that bloom each year.
Yay!
Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week.